So the other part that I just quickly wanted to talk about was the decision-making process of do we or don't we go the TPLO route. So we've had a few cases at the referral center where I work that have been almost along the lines of Dakota, if you want, with something potentially palpable on exam on the sedation, not very convincing always. And your question about how can we know, there is only one way to find out for sure, and that is to stick a camera in it and to scope the joint. So that's one of the things that we tend to do for cases that we really not sure of, and that we feel, again, part of almost excluding things. Yeah, if we've excluded a long list of possible issues, we still feel, is there something wrong with that cruciate, yes or no? And the decision making is going to be, let the dog be a dog and end up with a full cruciate rupture, or do a TPLO very early on, potentially very early on. The only way to almost clinically make that decision, other than saying, you know what, we'll just wait and see, is going to be to stick a scope in it. See what does that ligament look like. Is there any frailing on the sides? Is there any bits of inflammation extra in there that we can see? Is there anything that can give us a better idea of that cruciate is absolutely pristine? It's just a dog that has a little bit more gift to its stifle, or yes, we've got 1,000 fibers of your cruciate ligament and we've lost 2 or somewhere along the way.
So if you've lost 2 of 1,000, does that mean you have to fix it or it's okay?
Exactly. So it becomes a point that the more you know, the harder it's going to be to make a decision.
Yeah.
And it's something that we don't really know. And it depends on what your dog is going to be.
Meaning, because I'm happy to not do agility if that's going to keep him, he is interested in so many things, and so am I, that life goes on without it, and we both live satisfying, fulfilling lives. And so once he's back into good condition again, got his good strength, that I don't know, I will see what I do, what I feel I want to do. I don't want to have to treat him like he's fragile, that I want to be able to off leash hike and not worry about every little thing. So right now he seems fine, but we're just getting back into activity again for just a month or 2. So yeah,
and that's the other difficult thing. I mean, if you've got a dog with a certain issue that will only do, I don't know, 2 or 3 mile hikes, mainly level ground, you've got a lot more tolerance for things to not be 100% than for a high level competing agility dog that needs to be pretty much spot on perfect.
Yeah, so I'm thinking somewhere in the middle of that, that I don't worry about him in day-to-day life, but I don't throw balls for him generally anyway. It's occasionally at the end of a jump grid that's in control. But yeah, I think I'll know over time. But one thing, I thought that the Nina striding grids were a great way to get him back into physical condition before, like after the COVID, the first 3 months of COVID, there was a long break. And so I just eased him into those a couple times a week, mostly the extension direction. And I couldn't believe how much muscle he built in his rear that was like visible. I didn't even expect to see it. That do you think stuff like that is good to bring back for muscle building, or is it too punchy?
I think it depends a bit on what you've done in a break, if you want. There's a difference between them having been on a break because they really had to be on a break and they couldn't do any strenuous activity whatsoever, or whether they've been on a break as in just no agility training, but they have still had a fairly high maintenance level, if you want. But there's quite a bit of things again, before that we need to make sure are right.
Yeah.
So one of the other things that is in the pipeline, and actually a bit of videoing for this morning, is there going to be a bit of webinar-ish talk about jumping grids, why, how, what do we need, what do we want out of it, why do we do it? Because again, it's something that a lot of people say, oh yeah, we do grid work, we've done grid work, we've done it in puppy class, that's it. It's not quite how it works. It's something that is almost saying, oh, I've taught my dog a running dog walk. He could do a running dog walk when he was 2, and how he's 8, and you've never trained a running dog walk in your life anymore. Whereas what we do with jumping is, it's the biggest part of them doing agility. It's one of the most common things that we see that requires some form of jumping, and it's something that needs a bit of maintenance to whatever level it may be. But it also means that in order for them to jump and to do a grid properly, there are a few things that they need to be able to do. And they depend on what dogs need to do when they jump. And again, just a normal, simple, even just a straight on jump with all the power that needs to come from the back end and all those sorts of things, there is a series of events that needs to go just right. Because otherwise they will lose speed, they will not have a nice flight arc, they will struggle with landing, whatever it may be. And it's something that I think possibly people don't always appreciate or underestimate, at least. What the correct...
Yeah, or they don't know, they haven't developed their own eye to know how to set things up. Because, you know, in the Canine Jumping Forum, that is a group I started on Facebook in like 2013, and I think it's up to 3,500 members. And there's, you know, newbies come in there, they're wanting somebody to tell them what to do. And the good advice they get is, well, it depends on your dog. You'd have to post videos to, and it's so true. Like somebody will set something up and they think their dog has a big jumping problem, and everybody pipes in, the spacing's wrong. And that person's going, well, you know, thinking, well, how do you know the spacing? And it's, you know, everybody else could just see, well, it was the perfectly wrong spacing for that dog. And, you know, he did what any dog would do. So it's complicated. And also people are very opinionated about their jumping gurus that they follow. And so anytime you even kind of touch on a topic that is, you know, like the holy grail of somebody's program that's maybe been around for 20 or 15 or more years, that should be revisited and revised, because everything is constantly changing, the sport of agility and what we know about jumping and all that. But it's very touchy that if anything is, you know, said that's not completely supportive, it's like, you know, blasphemous and like, oh. So jumping, I encourage you to go dive right in there and get some arrows slung at you.
Yeah, but it's like you say, it's the issue where everything starts off from is that a lot of it is opinion based, because that's all what we have to go by. That's all we have at the moment, other than some studies out there that look at jump heights or jumping mechanics to some degree. I don't think there's much study on grit work in dogs, scientific studies that say this is how things work, this is how it should be. And until that is there, it's going to be opinions.
Right. And yet,
as long as it's opinions, people are going to differ from it.
Right. And, you know, I think the tricky thing is, you know, if people want answers, they look to people who call themselves experts, versus I would call those people who have, you know, have been thinking about jumping for a long time. I'm not sure they're experts. I'm not sure there is such a thing as an expert unless they are, like you said, you know, going in and doing, you know, the kind of studies that it'd be really hard, because each dog is different within each breed and the history of the dog and how they were trained. And yeah, so yeah, I don't know that it would even be possible to do something that would give a scientific outcome to a study.
And that's one of the reasons why there aren't many, because it's logistically something very hard. And it's as soon as you want to do anything statistically meaningful with it, you're going to run into issues, because you're going to have groups of different experience levels, which we know plays a big role. You're going to have dogs that move differently, have different lines behind them, have
different focus. Some Ford focus too much on the toy, some just enough, some not enough, and confidence, and
it's all going to make comparisons even harder.
Yeah.